Hello and welcome to Bud's RPG Review, where I give my thoughts on role-playing games, card games and board games. Today's retro review is 1994's Lords of Terror, The Cult of Dorastor for RuneQuest 3rd edition by Chaosium. Also, I need to say thanks to my friend Mark for letting me borrow his copy of this for the review. Okay, first a bit of history. Lords of Terror is a 96-page book that is the 3rd edition version of the 2nd edition book Cults of Terror. It was designed as a companion book to Dorastor Land of Doom. Whereas the 2nd edition book Cults of Terror has cult write-ups for Primal, Chaos, Mallya, Bagog, Thed, Viva Mort, Thanatar, the Crimson Bat, Crashed, and Nicelor/Gabaji, Lords of Terror leaves out the Crimson Bat and Nicelor/Gabaji, but includes those of Krajalk and Pachango. The reasoning behind this is unclear, however, my best guess is that the Crimson Bat was left out, as this is more associated with the cult of the Red Goddess, and Nicelor/Gabaji doesn't really have a cult to speak of. Okay, first the cover. Here we have a depiction of Ollie the Keen at the point of defeating Ralzakar, the King of the Brews, a powerful image when you understand what later became of Ollie. Here we have the usual RuneQuest invocation, let him be damned in his going out and in his coming in. May the goddess strike him with madness, and Zentha summon the night to blind him. May Magasta summon the oceans to drown him and all of his kin. May the heavens empty upon him thunderbolts, and the wrath of Orlanth flay his substance in the present and future worlds. May Yelm light against him and Marangor gape her more to swallow him up. Powerful words, and I wouldn't like to be in his shoes, whoever he is. Okay, the first chapter is entitled The Wounded World. This discusses Glorantha being a fragile bubble of stability in an infinite maelstrom of chaos. It was order existing in disorder. The God's War weakened the order and allowed chaos into the world. It describes chaos as being something that tends to re-establish itself, and as something that spreads and is manifested in malignant deities. It points out that chance and purposeful actions can summon chaos into the world, and that it can be purposefully summoned, using the case of Whackbot the Devil as an example. Chaos is a parody of life. They manifest as corruption and perversions of wholesome gods of Glorantha. The example given is that Mallya once had powers to aid life and growth. It's worth pointing out that what many chaos deities represent is incomprehensible to sane, normal life, such as the way of the Outer Void. The book is described as being about the bad guys of Glorantha, the enemies of creation. It also addresses the Gloranthan perspective of chaos and the views of the peoples. It also says that the spell descriptions here supersede the wands and gods of Glorantha. It introduces the new Chaos Law knowledge skill and discusses its application in game. After this we have a nice piece on what is essentially the Necronomicon of RuneQuest, the Book of Drastic Resolutions. This is a treatise on the nature of chaos that is said to have been penned by Salinar Tamaskil, a sage of Lancor Mai. It is considered by some a blasphemous tome. Mechanically, it acts in a similar manner to tomes in Call of Cthulhu, with the additional benefit of increasing a player's chance of being illuminated by 10%. Following this, we have an interesting dialogue on how a non-chaos follower, in this case a follower of Orlanth, views chaos. It gives opinions on most of the chaos gods and even includes views on the likes of Zistor and the Lunar Empire. It does a really good job of offering a perspective on what you already assume as a player. After this we have opinions on chaos by a brew. Again, it is interesting to see how different the opinions are, but quite frankly, you'd have to be a maniac to agree with chaos's point of view. It then gives a rundown on the story that permeates the book, Halgrim's War. This is the reminiscences of Paulus Longveil, where he travels with some of the famous characters from Gloranthan history and faces chaos. It's a reprint of what is contained in Cults of Terror and a really good read. It has a fairly bittersweet ending that I really enjoyed and I would recommend reading it. We have detail on Gabaji. This includes a few opinion pieces on who Gabaji was from many different perspectives, including Arkat, the Wrist Elves and the Seven Mothers. For the whole rundown on the Arkat Gabaji Nicelor saga, please see my review of Dorastor Land of Doom. Okay, first up is Primal Chaos. Primal Chaos is described as the fundamental potency of random change that entered the world through the cracks in the universe created by the God's War, and is the ultimate source of all chaos things. The cult is associated with the Rune of Chaos. Cult espouses the belief that outside the bubble of reality that is Glorantha, chaos exists and is ever trying to reclaim the world. Chaos is not described as an end, but a means to an end. Primal Chaos cannot be worshipped directly. It's usually done by being a member of another chaos cult, although some powerful chaos sorcerers have been able to contact it. The cult is a very loose one that has no holy days, not even proper places of worship, and any creature that possesses a chaos feature is automatically an initiate of Primal Chaos. The cult has a powerful divine spell called Blessing of Chaos that is a ritual that gifts a willing recipient a chaos feature. All chaos cults are associated with Primal Chaos. Following this we have the stats for a powerful NPC, Mistress Devourer, a Bruce shaman and devotee of Primal Chaos. Mistress Devourer was originally a human initiate of Lancor Mai called Turpin Redlock, who turned to the worship of the evil deity Atiar and accepted a gift from Thanatar which caused him to turn into a brew. He has a very interesting backstory which could easily spark many adventure paths. After this we have an interesting section on chaos features, which divides possible features into beneficial and detrimental, and provides tables for the DM and players to roll on, and includes a treatise on observed distribution of chaos features by a worshipper of Aripiontor, the lunar god of knowledge. Following this we have the Cult of Mallya. Mallya was originally a spirit of healing with great powers of growth and birth, who grew jealous of those greater than herself. During the Gods' War she became a corruption of death, a force unlike that of Orlanth and Humact. With Thed and Ragnaglar combining to bring chaos into the world, she joined them, and was midwife to the birth of Wakboth the Devil. Children of Ragnaglar, the Brews, worshipped her and she aided them in return. She split from Thed and Ragnaglar, but the taint of that union remained. As her power grew, so did the breadth of her worship, with trolls, men and elves praying to her to avert her wrath. She's sometimes depicted as a pock-marked old woman dripping with disease, and other times as a headless body with a maw in its belly. The Brews see her as a female Brew. Mallya is associated with the runes of death and darkness, and were worshipped by Brews with chaos. She's known as the Foul Mistress, the Last Death and the Cosmic Disease, and she commands disease, plague and pestilence, and is mainly worshipped by Brews and Harpies. She is known as the Keeper of the Cart that carries souls to the sundering stream. Her devotees revel in the suffering of others, and they reserve a particular hatred for the healers of Shalana Arroy. The worship of Mallya is outlawed in most Gloranthan societies. Indeed, worshippers of her are killed and burned or otherwise purified. Her shamans are known as disease masters, whose only duty is to spread infection throughout the world and prevent efforts to cure it. They have a special spirit magic spell called Sneeze, and divine magic that invokes beings to carry and cause disease. Apostates of the cult find their immunity to disease removed. The cult is associated with those of Thed and Vivamort. We have following this an interesting and powerful NPC called Daughter of Ralzakark, a female Brew disease master of Mallya. Whether or not she actually is a genuine daughter of the Brew King Ralzakark, nobody really knows. She is, however, a powerful force in Doristor, and we have some good adventure hooks on how to integrate her into your campaign. Following this, we have some information on disease in Glorantha and some in-depth rules on how to carry, cure and recover from diseases, as well as cleansing items that are diseased. We also have some common diseases and mortal diseases, as well as their in-game effects. Next up is Bagog, the Scorpion Queen. Bagog was led into the universe by Wakboth the Devil, who killed and devoured all she met. She started laying eggs, which hatched into smaller versions of her. The Scorpion race is consumed like their mother and rose in power, forming a basic social order centred around Bagog and her daughters, known as the First Scorpion Queens. The tribes of Scorpion people have survived since the darkness due to their willingness to live where other creatures dread. Among themselves, and creatures friendly to them, they are known as the Jurlugs, the people. She's generally depicted as a gigantic wrinkled scorpion woman. Bagog is associated with the runes of Chaos, Beast and Man. Worshippers consider Scorpion Queens to be Bagog incarnate, and her word is law, and she has shamans and acolytes that take care of business for her, and she remains at the centre of the tribe. Scorpion Queens are horrific monsters who usually remain hidden, and as such, non-chaotics are not really aware of their existence, and one can only really take the role of a Scorpion Queen by defeating and eating the current one. The tribes are happy with this, as they consider one who is strong enough to win as being strong enough to rule. As you would imagine, the divine spells are centred around physical enhancements, with spells such as Carapace, Claws and Jabbers, which turns one of the priest's arms into a large spike. We also have details of the Ritual of Devouring and Ritual of Rebirth spells, which are used to absorb knowledge through devouring and creating Scorpion Men respectively. After this we have an interesting NPC, Karana. Karana is an illuminated Scorpion Queen and Sword of Humact, who used to be human, who can have some interesting interactions with players due to her illumination. Next up is Thed, Mother of Brews. Before the Lesser Darkness, Thed was a great goddess whose children, the Brews, were untouched by chaos. She gave birth to Wakboth the Devil, whose evil malevolence turned her inside out during childbirth. The first thing Wakboth did was to slay his father Ragnaglar, so nobody could be subsequently born to rival him, and then forced his mother to make the Brews aid him. Thed then submitted to being raped by him, and horrors such as Quim, Tien the Headhunter, and the Black Goat were born into the world. Thed eventually fell to Kaigalitor, who skinned her. Following the destruction of Wakboth by Uroks, Thed fled to the spirit plane. After the Great Compromise, Thed occupies a minor place in the universe, remaining the Mother of Brews but unable to expand her influence further. Thed is generally illustrated by the Brews as a female Brew with bestial sexual organs. She is pictured as a gigantic slim figure with a long tufted tail and deformed claws by the Praxians and Orlanthi. Thed is associated with the runes of Spirit and Chaos, as well as minor associations with the Fertility rune. Among the Orlanthi, Thed is known as the goddess of rape, mother of brews, and one of the unholy trio. Among the Praxians, she is known as a great demon that wanders the plains. Thed hates nearly every other god, but has a particular hatred for Uroks the Storm Bull, who slew her husband and whose children slew her sons. She also has a particular dislike for the Darkness gods, Kaigalitor predictably the most. She's generally friendly towards Mallya, although Mallya has distanced herself from Thed. The cult is very important to Brews and creates fear in other races. The most dominant Thed worshipper in an area must create a gang and maintain that dominance by any means necessary. To join the cult of Thed, the supplicant must bring 2 gifts, although as Thed is an immensely jealous god, females of any race are not allowed, and any non-Brew must become a creature of chaos through either the Rebirth of Chaos or Chaos Feature Ritual. Thed gives the divine spells Chaos Spawn, Curse of Thed, and Rebirth of Chaos. We also have an interesting NPC included, Wakbotlar, Father of Devils. He is described as being the result of a project begun 6 years ago by Ralzakark to produce a racially pure brew, and as such is about as handsome a brew as one gets, so perfectly formed that he could be mistaken for a beastman. Wakbotlar has a group of followers and considers himself too important to engage with enemies. We have some interesting scenario ideas also included. Additionally, we have a section on female brews. Only about 10 to 15% of brews born are female, some say due to Thed being a jealous god who only wants male followers. Brew can mate with any race and produce offspring, which then goes on to enforce Thed's will upon the world. This is a difficult proposition for female brews. As such, most female brews end up worshipping Mallya. Following Thed, we have a small section on Vivamort. Vivamort is generally counted amongst the myths of Glorantha as a god of chaos, although his followers deny this, saying he is not a god but a spirit being. His cult offers his followers no spirit or divine magic, only sorcery is available to initiates, and followers receive no life after death. The cult is mostly secretive. It actually goes on to say that a complete cult description is planned for the never-published Tower of Night campaign. Next up is Krujalk, Lord of Monsters. Krujalk was amongst the gods of chaos that crawled from the void after the destruction of the spike. At the height of his power he was fearsome, yet during the Gods' War he was devoured by Xeraxaran. Krujalk was rediscovered in the Dawn Age, and during the time of Kabaji's empire, rose in power. When Arkat raised the land of Doristor, Krujalk was defeated again. Among the Hellwood Elves, Krujalk is portrayed as a black slime tree, a rare plant that yields gorp like slime. Krujalk is associated with the runes of chaos, harmony, and change. Krujalk has few followers, but those that he does have flaunt their chaos status openly and are often found as leaders of chaotic communities. The cult generally only has power in Hellwood, where its members are the power elite of the Forest Council. Krujalk feeds on hate, greed and vengeance, and especially of apostasy. When one leaves another cult to join his, it delights him. Followers of Krujalk are considered insane by human standards. The cult is unknown in Pamaltella and rare in Genetella, although his worship is rampant in Doristor. One must only desire to embrace chaos to join the cult of Krujalk. Krujalk provides his priests with a conversion spell which gives them chaotic features, and power drain which allows them to drain magic points by touch. We have Blackthorn, a Hellwood elf who is an illuminated priest of Krujalk and an initiate of Aldrya. He's a fearsome NPC and is usually sent as an emissary to Fort Wrath. Next up is Thanatar, the Severed God. Thanatar's cult is the combination of two cults, those of Than and Atiar. Devotees of either cult can worship freely at each other's shrines, however, they only have limited spell access until they worship at a full temple of Thanatar. Atiar is the devourer of knowledge and was worshipped as a patron of occult thieves in Krorala and spread westward, where it was reunited with the cult of Than. Than is a corruption of Tien, a son of Wakboth who was beheaded in the Gods' War by a son of Urox. It explains that a full write-up of the cult of Thanatar is found in Shadows of the Borderlands. Pachango, Source of Mutation, is next. First seen after the spike exploded, Pachango was most active in Genetella, where it was an enemy of the trolls. Pachango was responsible for the creation of cave trolls. Indeed, some trolls know of a deity called Gorp God, whose body was destroyed by Xeraxaran. This was most likely Pachango, and is represented occasionally as a giant Gorp, and is associated with the runes of chaos and change. As the god of corruption, Pachango's cult is about changing that which is good to bad, and is most often worshipped by chaos monsters and insane individuals. The worship of Pachango is throughout Glorantha, but especially in Doristor and Dagoriankarth. The cult will take initiates from any race, and priests are known as Shamblers, whose job is to manifest their god in the world by continual use of his divine magic. They are often so warped and mutated that they are unrecognisable as sentient beings. Pachango has the divine spells Consume, Corruption and Wither. We also have included the NPC Shambler, a warped and mutated priest of Pachango whose sex, species and name are unknown. Shambler has recently created a new type of Gorp that can extend pseudopods from its body. As with the other NPCs, we have some interesting adventure seeds and the game statistics for the pseudopodic Gorp. Following Pachango is Krasht, the Waiting Mouth. Krasht came to the world through the cracks created by the Gods' War. Also known as the Hungry One and the Devouring Mother, Krasht survived by feeding on the refuse of Glorantha. Legends say that Lanster, the elder god of change, once saw Krasht and stepped on it to remove it from the world, but it bit him, infecting him, and where his blood fell, a corrupted forest rose. Many say that the Foulwood and Hjortland is where his blood fell to earth. During the darkness, Krasht remained unchallenged, but eventually had to face Urox and his sons. Seriously wounded, Krasht was eventually driven from the surface world. The sons of Urox followed Krasht into the tunnels that were left behind, but they fell victim to traps that had been laid. Some of Krasht's amputated body parts survived and grew into minor versions of her and followed her underground. During the ages that followed, Krasht grew more powerful, and only odd Mostali miners were her rivals, and she grew patient and became the Waiting Mouth. Since time began, Krasht has never tried to take surface lands, knowing her forces underneath the feet of her enemies were causing the slow decay of the world. Krasht is often depicted as a pool of chaos ooze, her form in the Gods' War, but also as an octopus-like creature with fanged tentacles. Krasht is associated with the runes of chaos and hunger, and in some societies the runes of change and stasis. She also has some associations with the death and disorder runes. Krasht is described as a deity of intrigue and power-seeking, infesting civilizations. She tends to draw the likes of con men, bureaucrats and unscrupulous traders to her worship. The cult has a large emphasis on secrecy and always conceals its existence. Worshippers work towards the day when Crashed can take the surface world as her own. Her temples are almost always small and secret in areas where humans are members. In areas where Crashed kids are contactable, they are vast temples carved by them. The cult has different levels of membership. Initiates are known as drools, acolytes are lips, rune lords are jaws, and priests are tongues. Jaws act as an assassination arm of the cult. The cult teaches the skills of bribery and disguise, and has a few cult-specific spirit magic spells, as well as the divine spells of chomping, command, sweat acid, and venom bite. It also stats out Crash Tides, which are the spirits that act as spirits of reprisal for the cult. Also, we have the divine spell Tongue, which is only available in temples where Crashed kids are active. After this, we have the stats for an NPC worshipper of Crashed, Timin Onil, who has an alias called Folco Two Brother, a lunar bureaucrat. Behind this mask is the mind of a sociopath. We also have some good adventure hooks involving him. Next up, we have details of other cults in Dorastor. There's information on Cacodemon, a remnant of Whackbot the Devil, Shilana Aroy, the goddess of healing and one of the Lightbringers, who is worshipped by some brews in Ralzakark's service, the Rasta, the goddess of the land of Dorastor, Gloomshark, the chaotic source of hunger, Humact, the god of war and death, Hungry Jack, a chaos creature related to the Hungry Eater of Dorastor, Ikads, the god of pain and torture, Korbog, the chaos hunter, Kaigalitor, the mother of trolls, Lemur, the source of passions, Magra, the harpy ancestress, Sedana, the black goat, Telmor, the father of wolves, Tyram, the sky terror, Rain, the evil wind, and Vakalta, the haunter of hell, who has the particularly nasty spell Devour Troll. Following this, we have an interesting article on Stormbull psychology, which gives us some insight into how worshippers of Uroks do what they do to face chaos, as well as some notes on how to roleplay this. Next, we have some information on the Path of Illumination. Here is some additional notes to add to the ones from Dorastor Land of Doom. It gives information on the nature of Illumination, and how it is not a game mechanic, but a dramatic device. Illumination should not be sought, but found. It clarifies their immunity to spirits of reprisal and learning nicer lore riddles. It also gives notes on the cult of Arcat and further information on the philosophy of Illumination. And finally, we have some information on passion spirits and an index of new skills and spells. In conclusion, there's a lot to be gained from getting hold of a copy of Lords of Terror. When reviewing this, I felt I had to compare it to Cults of Terror, and in doing so the differences were obvious. Cults of Terror is a fantastic book which you should buy if you're a fan of RuneQuest, but Lords of Terror has much to offer that Cult doesn't. Cults of Terror felt very much like a book for the GM, bursting at the seams with game information and Glorantha's wonderful myth. Lords of Terror feels like a distillation of all the great stuff in Cults. Yes, not having the Crimson Bat and nice lore stroke Gabaji included, as well as not fully putting in Vivamort and Thanatar was not great, but adding in Pachango and Krajal kind of made up for it. The point of view on the nature of chaos is excellent and goes some way to explaining how the world sees it to players. The artwork throughout is excellent and the book is beautifully laid out and really easy to read. The beneficial and detrimental chaos features table is really handy for the GM, and the quite brilliant NPCs that are given for each cult ship provide some excellent adventure hooks for those wishing to venture into Dorastor. The Tale of Halgrim's War is superb, and Oddie's illumination at the end is beautifully, almost poetically written and very bittersweet. The lack of the monomyth was something that I didn't like. A timeline of events would have gone a long way to explaining many things in the book, but I suppose that just gives you one more reason to buy Cults of Terror as well. Indeed, at times, Lords of Terror felt like a companion book to Cults of Terror. Lords of Terror fleshes out the Cults of Chaos in a fine way, and although not as good, at least in my eyes, as Cults of Terror, it's still well worth your time and money. I give Lords of Terror a very respectable 9 out of 10. If you enjoyed this review, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also, don't forget to check out my other reviews. Bud out.